Okay, Shalom Aleichem everybody. Wow, big chavra. Ooh, wow, Sam Bellows is here. It's not Stam. Come on down.
Just in time.
Baruch Hashem. Okay, so tonight's learning should be a schos for continued refuah shlema for Shein Lavdor Bas Chayachana. Great to see you. Shein Lavdor Bas Chayachana, and for a special schos refuah shlema for Yisachar Berish Ben Yochavet Chana, who had a very important test done today. So we hope to hear good results. And should be a schus for Golda Atara Bas Leah, Yisach Shechol Yisrael. Come on down, come on down. And not only that, it should be a schus for the Chatufim for sure, and the Chayalim. It should be safe and successful. The Cholim, and we should be Suras Tovas and Eretz Yisrael. Okay, so some of the Chaver are asking, how did we land on Maharal? Baruch Hashem, we did a machzor of the Sfas Emes. The question is, what should we learn this upcoming year? How do we get to the Maharal? So I've spent, Baruch Hashem, a little bit of time learning the Maharal over the past bunch of years, and I've always had an affinity for the Gur Aryeh. We'll talk about the Gur Aryeh in specific in just a second. But I was also thinking maybe we should do the Netziv. I spent some time over the summer getting swept away, we'll qualify the Netziv, it's so Geshmak, and the Kli Yakar also. But Kli Yakar is actually a Talmud of the Maharal. There's a cool story, I'm not sure if it's true or not. The Kli Yakar was taken by the Parts away from his parents. I don't know if he was orphaned or just the Parts took him. And he was obviously this like Iluyish kid who knew everything, picked up everything. Apparently he was like a world-class violinist. Again, I haven't verified all the Maisalach about the Kli Yakar, but apparently the Maharal got wind of it. And there was like this whole tug of war between the Maharal and this non-Jewish, Parts, whatever it was, trying to get the Kli Yakar. Kitzur Maisa, we'll talk about this next year in 2 years when we get to the Kli Yakar, but the Kli Yakar ended up becoming a Talmud of the Maharal. Fine. So Maharal, Netziv is going back and forth, but I've already, Baruch Hashem, spent some time on the Maharal, so I felt a little bit more comfortable, and I feel like there's a lot more in the Maharal. We can go in different directions every single week. So that's Nekuda number 1. Nekuda number 2, the Gur Aryeh, specifically in the Sifrei Maharal. So Rav Hartman, who, we have the blue Maharals over here. So Rav Hartman is like the world expert, one of the world experts in Maharal, and he actually tells people when they say, I want to start to learn Maharal, so people say, should I learn Tiferes Yisrael? Should I learn Netzach Yisrael? And he tells people, no, you got to start with the Gur Aryeh. In the Gur Aryeh, he lays down certain yisodos in the worldview, in the machshava, in the hashkafa of the Maharal, and he says, kedai to go through the Maharal in the Gur Aryeh first, and he actually put together a mafteach, a little, like a pamphlet, thank you, of which Maharals are kedai to see and important to see for Yisodos in the Maharal. So which are the ones we should see? So I've been using his thing over the past number of years to kind of focus on specific ones throughout the Parsha. Now, Gur Aryeh is specifically a commentary on Rashi. Right? So another reason I dafka wanted to do it because I needed chizik in my own Shnai Mikra, and I want to make sure I'm actually paying attention to Rashis and make sure I'm seeing the Rashis. So if I do Gur Aryeh, it necessarily means I have to check out Rashi's first. So it was also just a muster for me and a chizik for me to make sure I'm doing my Shnai Mikra. That was another kavana in terms of the Gur Aryeh. Now, one of the challenges I would say with the Maharal in general, and I would say specifically the Gur Aryeh, but very often the Maharal doesn't give us the takeaway. Meaning he lays down profound ideas. As one of my Rebbeim once told me, that the Maharal writes in a simple Hebrew. It's easy to translate, but the ideas are sometimes hard to wrap our heads around. Number one, even when we can kind of understand the idea, he doesn't tell us what the practical takeaway is. There's no lekach. And I've also listened to many shiurim from Rav Aaron Lapiansky in the context of the Maharal, but he has a piece here in his Sefer Golden Apples that I think is kedai, just to highlight. I'm not going to go through the whole piece with everyone here, but he gives a cool idea, and I think we're gonna plug it into the Maharal, God willing, over the course of the year. He talks about bracha in Parshas Lech Lecha, and Avraham Avinu is given a bracha by HaKadosh Baruch Hu, v'nivruchu v'cha, v'avarecha. There are lashonos in the psukim, v'eheyeh beracha, you're going to be a bracha. What does it mean to be a bracha? So without getting into the whole arichos that Rav Lapiansky goes through, he basically says, what's bracha? In general, before Avraham Avinu came along, so everyone was a makabel. You just got from HaKadosh Baruch Hu, you received from HaKadosh Baruch Hu. We weren't producing so much. Avraham Avinu came and he became a bracha. A bracha means to produce, to make more of. What does that mean? If we even think about just the letters of the word bracha, Beis, Reish, and Chaf, it's all 2 in Gematria, 220, meaning it's multiplying, it's making more of. You're taking something and you're producing. HaKadosh Baruch Hu gave Adam and Chava a bracha that they should be fruitful and multiply, meaning two people come together and you're producing more and more and more. You're going beyond being a makabel from HaKadosh Baruch Hu, and you're now making more of. If a person is a makabel, says Rav Lapiansky, you get something, maybe you heard a nice shir. If you give over the exact shir to other people, he says you see this sometimes in the context of kiruv. After a couple years, and maybe sometimes less, a person he's relying on the shiurim that he heard from his Rebbe, from his Rebbeim, and he's just saying it over the exact same way. He's just regurgitating it. If it's just regurgitated, and if it's just giving it over, so it loses some of that punch. Avram Avinu had the capacity to be a bracha, to multiply, to produce more and more and more. And we know that Yitzchak, right, the Avos had to dig the wells that their parents, why did they re-digging the wells? We spoke about this with Shas Emes a bunch of, earlier in the year. That they have to make sure they're doing it on their own and they're producing. So I think one of the cool things about the Maharal is that he's forcing us to think and maybe make the jumps ourselves. He's giving us a yesod, and we have to think, what does this mean for me in my life? Why does this Maharal speak to me? Why is this an exciting Maharal? Why did Rav Hartman say we should focus on this one? So I think it forces us also to think a little bit more, and I think that was Kedai. So we should give us all a bracha. There should be a year of bracha learning Maharal. God willing, we'll have Siyata D'Shmaya. God willing, we'll learn a lot of Torah. And I hope we all enjoy the ride. So let's do it. So let's jump in. Parsha Shoftim. Perak Yudzayin Pasuk Ches Ki Pali Mimcha Davar LaMishpa Bein Dam LeDam Bein Din LeDin Bein Nega LeNega Divrei Rivos B'Sharecha V'Kamta V'Alisa LaMakom Asher Yivchar Hashem Elokecha Bo. So before the Maharal, Rashi comments on this. Rashi says, just want to turn the page here. Rashi goes through what does it mean Bein Dam LeDam Bein Din LeDin Bein Nega LeNega. So we're talking about different categories of halacha. Bein Dam Tamei LeDam Tahor. Bein Din LeDin is Bein Din Zakai LeDin Chayiv. So we have dam, we have dinim, and then we have bein nega lenega. Is this nega? Tell me, is this nega tahor? Then what's divrei rivos? Rashi comments, shihiyu chachmei ha'ir chokim bedavar. There's a machlokis amongst the rabbanim of the city. Zem etame, zem etayr, zem echayev, zem ezakeh. These ones are saying it's good. These ones are saying it's bad. These ones are saying it's tummy. These ones are saying it's tahor. What do? V'kam tavalisa. You should get up and go. El makom asher yivchar Hashem lokecha bo. Go to the makom that HaKadosh Baruch Hu chose. Uvasa ela kohanim alaviyim ve'ela shofet asher yihiyeh bayomim ahim v'darash v'gid lecha is devar hamishpat. You go and get the psak, but you have to move up the ladder. You have to go to the Sanhedrin. You have to get a psak halacha, get a psak din, to basically nip the machlokas in the bud and say, this is the din. Everyone with me so far? That's posting the Torah. That's Rashi. Giva. The Maharal first says, I didn't give you the whole introduction or the first paragraph in the Gur Aryeh, but he quotes a Sifri that says Divrei and Rivos imply not just what Rashi quoted, that you have to Melamed Shebeis HaMikdash Gavoa Mikol HaMakomos, but rather, I read the wrong Rashi, not just you Chachmei Ha'ir Chokim Bedavar, not just that there's a machlokes in the city, but Divrei means there's certain things that you accomplish via Dibor, whether it's Erachin, whether it's being Makdish something, whether it's Matnas Kahuna, Charamim, things like that. And then there's Rivos. There are fights. What are the Rivos? So Hashka Sota. Sota happens usually because there's some sort of Shalom Bayis strife. Arifas Egla Arufa. I would say what leads to, precipitates the Egla Arufa, the Maharal points out, is usually there's some sort of Meriva that led to someone being killed. And then there's Taharas Mitzora, which is also stems from some sort of ill will, we'll call it. Skipping that paragraph though, and this is what we have on the sheets here. V'im tomar ma'ishna hani, the kasav law beferish bikra, meaning there's certain things that are explicit in the pasuk. Bein dam ledam, bein din ledin, bein nega lenega, v'chol hani arachin v'charamim v'shar milsa, meaning all the things that are explicitly stated and spoken out in the Sifri. Why are those left out? Lo kasav beferish bikra. Why are those not mentioned in the pasuk? What are we learning from dam ledam, din ledin, and nega lenega? Zok the Maharal. V'yir lomar de kohani gimel dvarim. These three things. Dahainu dam nida, dam yoledes. V'chein din, v'chein negoim. Him tikun mitzios min ha'enoshi v'seder min hagenu. Says the Maharal that these three categories are highlighting and maybe categorizing the areas in life that we all need tikkun in order to be mesader all of our affairs. Shehu yisparach tikkun havayasenu al hayoser shalim. That this is leading us to a level of shleimus. HaKadosh Baruch Hu wants us to be shalom. HaKadosh Baruch Hu created a world in which we are not perfect. He could have made us perfectly. I mean, He did make us perfectly. He could have made us shalom, but He created us perfectly imperfect. We lack certain areas. There are certain areas, I should say, that are chaser, that our job is to be mashlim. HaKadosh Baruch Hu wants us to be mashlim. What are those areas? So says the Maharal, it's hinted to in this pasuk. The very nature, the very essence, the reality of mitzias of a person is yushlam begimel devarim. What are these three categories? They call adam tzarech tikkun atzmo. There's a certain level of self development, we'll call it. A person has to work on themselves. V'tzarech leisha v'hu tikkun beisam. There's a certain level of, we'll call it family, a wife, a spouse, children. We'll call it the family unit. V'tzarech lasok b'mamon kedei lefarnes atzmo ulachayos atzmo. A person also needs to make a living, to make a parnas in order to provide for themselves. More often than not, so a person in the context of business is dealing with other people. So there's atzmo, there's ishto / beso, and then there's achirim. Says the Maharal, the neged ha'isha amar bein dam ledam. Right, we know dam nida v'chulei. The hainu mashatikin l'cha HaKadosh Baruch Hu eich yisnaheg im ha'isha lihios ima b'dam nidasa ubiyoledes ubeziva. HaKadosh Baruch Hu is misakin certain ways and parameters in terms of how we relate to our spouses. What time of the month, how long, etc. All the dinim of nida, and yoledes and ziva. So those are all going to, we'll call it, dictate and determine the relationship we have at home. V'kein hanagaso im ha'achirim hu bein din ledin. And when it comes to how we relate to other people, nizikin, choshen mishpat. We're learning about Matzia this year in yeshiva. So we have to know how to relate to other people, how to relate to other people's stuff, other people's money, their belongings, their possessions. V'chein mashet tzarech tikun atzmo, v'hu negam, v'hu nega begufo. You have a certain, you have a nega, you have a lesion, you have something on your body. You have to figure out, is this tameh, is it tahor? Ve'elohim ikar hanhagas ha'adam, shebo yushlam tikun mitziuso ba'atzmo ubeishto v'im achirim. And I think it's a very, again, that's so far number one in the Maharal. And then we'll just skip the next line. Uki'ilu amar ilu shlosha v'kayotze behem shehim kolim kol hanhagasinu. Meaning there are a lot of other things, like the shar dvarim, all the other categories, all the other halachos, everything that fits under that. The Maharal is saying that we gave a yesod. Dam ladam din ladin nega nega. There are other things that are also true that if you're not sure what to do, there's machloks about them. Yes, run to the Sanhedrin and figure it out. Why are we highlighting these specific things in the Torah? To say that these are fundamental in terms of categorizing our need to be working on ourselves. Bein adam la'atzmo and bein adam la'chavero. And the Maharal points out that ishto or beso is kind of like the in-between point. It's the mamutza. It's somewhere, it's not yours. I mean, ishto kegufo, and your family is you, but at the same time, they're not literally you. So it's almost like, they're in between acherim and atzmo. They're like the bridge there. Now, before we go weiter, in terms of going to the Chachamim and seeking out that Eitzah, I think it's important to also highlight, you may have thought that there's something lacking here, in terms of our avodas atzmo. Because from this Maharal, we see that there's bein adam le'atzmo and there's bein adam le'chavero. What's lacking? Bein adam le'makom. So I think this relates to the point we made before, and that is HaKadosh Baruch Hu created us, intentionally, perfectly imperfect. We're lacking certain things, and we have to mashlim ourselves. Hashem wants us to do that. And every time we're working on ourselves, so there's a certain refinement that takes place, that we're bringing out our own Tselem Elokim. And Hashem wants that to happen. And sometimes that only happens, we grow closer to HaKadosh Baruch Hu, we get more in touch with our own Elokus, by working on Bein Adam La'atzmo and Bein Adam L'Chavero. If you think about it, Avram Avinu was talking to HaKadosh Baruch Hu, and then he goes to do Hachnas Orchim, and we learn that it's Gadol, Hachnas Orchim, Mikabos Pnei Ashchina. How could that be? You're literally talking to God. In a certain way, he was a makabel there in a certain way. It was sheva al tasa. He was just being a recipient. He was just being makabel from HaKadosh Baruch Hu. Now he gets up to actively go and do hachnas zorchim and work on his midos bein adam la'atzma and bein adam l'chavero. There's nothing that makes HaKadosh Baruch Hu more proud than us working on ourselves to try to be better, to access that elokus that we have inside of us. So really, every single time we're involved in bein adam la'atzma and bein adam l'chavero, there is also a tikkun in the realm of bein adam l'makom happening as well, which I think is important. That what?
When you're involved in bein adam l'makom, is there tikkun?
So often.
Presumably because you're refining yourself.
Beautiful. I would say often, and I think we may have mentioned this at some point in previous shurim, that one of the ways to see if your bein adam l'makom is growing, is, if you're doing it properly, is how is your bein adam l'chavero. Right? Sometimes people are flying. It seems like they're flying bein adam l'makom, and they kind of burn everybody else and leave everyone to the side. Maybe that's a sign that their bein adam l'makom is like a little bit, needs to be refined, a little bit recalibrated a little bit. Fine. Then the Maharal says that we have to go to the Chachamim if there is this machlokes. Lefich Amar ki, is this on the sheet? Yeah. Lefich Amar ki elu hadvarim roi lebezdin hagadol shebYerushalayim l'sakin. These things, this machlokes, the chesronos that we experience in these different areas, ki heim einei ha'eda, because the Sanhedrin are the eyes of the nation. Asher bam tolim kol ha'olam kol ha'yishuv. Everything is dependent on din. Everything is dependent on the Shoftim. Maharal speaks about this earlier in the Parsha. Shoftim v'shotrim titien lecha. And the yesod is that they are the heart and they are the eyes of the Jewish people, and they understand what's going on. So we go and we seek out Eitzah, very much like we used to go to the Nevi'im and understand what we need to do and how we need to work on ourselves and how we can be better and improve. So we would also go to Yerushalayim to get Eitzah from the Sanhedrin. I think that in and of itself is also a tremendous tikkun, to say that I can't do it on my own. How often do we ourselves, the people we know, want to try to just fix everything on their own? I don't need to go to this person, I don't need to go to speak to this person for Eitzah, I don't need to go here or anything like that, because I can figure it out. Taking that step and just saying, I'm going to get help, I'm going to speak to a friend, I'm going to speak to a Rebbe, or a Rav, or a Manig, or a therapist even. There are times when we go to seek help, and just that very act of saying, I know, I understand that I need help, and I'm going to go, that's a tremendous tikkun on bein adam la'atzma level as well. So I think that's a chashuv thing also. Fine, but let's keep it moving. If we jump a little bit later on in the Parsha, we get to the sugya of Edim. Api shnei Edim, api shlosha Edim yakum davar. The Torah tells us in Parak Yud Tes, Ki yakum eid chamas bi'ish la'anos bo sara. So there are going to be an eid chamas who gets up, la'anos bo sara. What's la'anos bo sara mean? Rashi says they're going to say davar she'eno. Shehu sar eid hazeh mikol ha'edis hazos. How? Ketzad she'amru lahem v'halo imanu hayisem ba'oso hayom b'makom ploni. Is the sugya of Edim Zomim. Okay, so if you've learned Makos before, I had a friend who told me when I first moved to Chicago, he said, you're from New York and you're teaching Makos in Ida Crown, you should know back in the day when you learned Makos in MTA or YU or wherever you learned in the past, there was always someone was in New York, Reuven killed Shimon, how could that be? You were with us in, I don't know, Florida, Miami, right, LA or Vegas. When you come to Chicago, the two cities are Chicago and Milwaukee. That was like now you're in the Midwest, okay? Fine. I don't think I ever gave those two cities when I taught Makos and Ida Crown, but fine. Anyway, we should just know the Masorah that we have here. Good. So says the Maharal, and this is a big Torah for Elul. Big Torah for Elul here. Shehu sar ha'ed mikol edus aval im lo hayu mazimin osam. Let's say it's not Eidei Hazama. Again, Eidei Hazama is, again, Reuven. What are our names here? Ben and Jerry come along and say, we saw Reuven kill Shimon on Monday in Chicago. Boom. And I don't know, Hag and Daz show up and they say, no, it's impossible. Imanu Hayisem, you were with us in Milwaukee. There's no way you could have seen Reuven kill Shimon. That's Hazama. They're saying you cannot have possibly seen that. Your Edus doesn't make any sense. But there's another form of Edus, which is called Eidei Hachasha. Rak shnei Edim amru, love v'shnei achirim omrim, lo love. He loaned it. No, he didn't loan it. They're disagreeing on the Metzias. Did he do it? Did he not do it? They're not saying that you could not have seen it. They're saying what you're saying is not true. Now, which one is worse? Shelo hisira se'ida mikola idas in zeh hazam. The Maharal says, when Ariel's going to say, oh, Reuven killed Shimon. And I come along and say, no, he didn't kill Shimon. That's wrong. Someone else killed Shimon. So, that's a case The Gemara says trey utrey. You have two Eidim, each coming. Their testimony is contradictory, so the Bezdin just throws it out. What's Eidei Hazama? Eidei Hazama is saying that Ben and Jerry couldn't possibly have given that Eidos because they weren't there. V'im Tomer, my Tam, who's that? It's maybe worse because now we have this din that what Kasher Zamam, what Ben and Jerry wanted. Let's say again, they were trying to get Reuven killed. They came along and said, "Oh, Reuven killed Shimon, so he's Chayiv Misa." And then two other guys come along and say, "You couldn't have. What are you? You were with us in Milwaukee. There's no way you could have seen that." So now whatever was going to happen to Reuven happens to Ben and Jerry.
So we believe the second.
Correct.
Necessarily.
Yeah, I mean, there's a lot of Jewish Chakir that happens, but yeah, let's assume on a very Pasha level, yeah. So that seems to be a lot worse than Eidei Hachasha, because Eidei Hachasha, we just throw it out and go back to square one. V'im tomar umay tam huzeh lomar she'im hayu mazim meseidim lomar imanu hayisim ba'osayom na'asu zomimim umishamim. So in this case, they're saying he loaned it, right? So it's a payment. V'ilu ma'achishim meseidim, and if the case was just Eidei Hachasha, afagav she'idis betela. Even though we do throw out the testimony, so we don't say that these guys are bad Eidim, we just say we throw it out. So what's going on here? When the second group of Eidim come along and say, you were with us, their Eidus is about the dudes themselves. It's about the two Eidim. It's about Ben and Jerry saying that you guys cannot have said that. So if they just go against the testimony, it's not a shot at the Eidim, it's a shot at the testimony, it's a shot at what they said. Venerally, just skip to the next paragraph. Kevin the Kaimelon, the Af Hazama Shalo Bafanav Lo Heve Hazama. There's also a din that the testimony that has to be given in front of the person. Shmam, you know that Sarach Sheya'id Al Ha'id Atzmo. Again, the Yesod Hadavar is that when it comes to Eidei Hazama, we're attacking the guy themselves. V'hachanami im achishim ha'edim bilvad, afagav dehu b'fanav, kiven de lobo leheir ala eid. If it's Eidei Hachasha, so I'm not attacking the guy, I'm attacking his words. Why do I think this is such a chashuv Torah? That the Maharal is pointing out a fundamental difference in Eidei Hazama and Eidei Hachasha? And why do I think this is kedai to think about in the context of Elul? Because Eidei Hazama is saying that Eidim are Pasul. You are not good Eidim anymore. Eidei Hachasha is saying that that's not good testimony. You're not a bad witness. You're not Pasul. We're not going to give you that punishment. What shaykh is to Elul and Shuva? Because I think sometimes in life we do stuff that's not great. We mess up sometimes. And instead of saying that's like Eidei Hachasha, that contradicts the other things I've been doing or the things that I said I've wanted to do, be the husband I want to be, or the father I want to be, or the son I want to be, the friend I want to be. Oh, and then I've done X, Y, and Z, so I'm a bum. No, you're not a bum. You just messed up. That's Eidei Hachasha, trey, we throw it out and start again. But instead of saying it was just Eidei Hachasha, sometimes we're too quick and we're mazim ourselves and we say we're Eidei Hazama. I'm Pasul Eidos. No, I can't do this. I'm a bum. I messed up once. I'm fundamentally Pasul. And all too often we give ourselves that label of Eidei Hazama. We're mazim ourselves. I think we have to recognize that sometimes we just miss the mark. Chet is a lashon of missing the mark. We're off a little bit. And that's okay. Bezdin throws the case out. They don't throw us out. You can come back. We can bounce back. We can come back again and again and again and again. And I think that's a really important yesod, because all too often we pasul ourselves. Forget Bezdin pasling ourselves. We pasul ourselves and we say we're bums and we can't do it. And I'm not good at davening. I had another bad Shemona Esrei, or I missed a mincha, or I fell asleep and I missed Mariv, or all the things that we do. And because we do those things, we say, forget it, I'm a joke. And then we get into this whole thing. Oh, I'm going to go through El again. I'm going to clap Achet again. I'm just a liar. I messed up. No, whoa, hold the phone. Don't pasel yourself. You had a bad day. You had a bad afternoon. You had a bad week, whatever it is. That doesn't mean you're pasel. Hachasha. We are machish our goals. But just because you're machish your goals doesn't mean you're done. It means you recalculate. El is all about recalculating. El is the GPS for what we want to do this upcoming year. And as you have to have that goal, as long as the goal, the address is plugged into the GPS, okay, sometimes you make a wrong turn. Sometimes you make a pit stop on the way also. You know how annoying is it when you're on the road trip and you go to the gas station or you go to the 7-Eleven or Starbucks, whatever it is, and you don't swipe off on the GPS on Google Maps or Waze. So while you're waiting online and your phone goes off in your pocket, turn right at the, sometimes you make stops even. Forget just going in a wrong way. We went off the highway, made a wrong turn, and we stopped for a little bit. That doesn't mean we can't get back on the road. We get back on the road and we keep on driving. We have to have the goal in mind. It's a big yesod. How much time do we have? It's a big yesod also in terms of... So we look at the Rambam, we'll talk about this more, God willing, in a couple of weeks, and the Rambam's understanding of what tshuva is, and what Rabbeinu Yonah holds tshuva is. And whether it needs to be a complete tshuva, and who is about tshuva lefi the Rambam, whereas who's about tshuva lefi Rabbeinu Yonah. Rabbeinu Yonah seems to have a much more, maybe realistic version, I feel bad saying that, but a more realistic version of tshuva, of saying, have you made the right commitments and you're heading in the right direction? It's not about did you necessarily do all of the, all the steps that the Rambam, lists and all the steps that the Rabbeinu Yonah lists. It's, are you headed in the right direction? Are you on the train, you have your ticket, and you're going there? Did you get there yet? That's not the point. The point is that you've committed to be better. So I think we just have to remind ourselves to not Pasul ourselves. Okay, so that's I think an important Maharal to speak out. Good. Let's turn the page here. And as we head to the end of the Parsha in Perek Chaf, so we go out to work. Don't be afraid. Ki Hashem Elokecha imach, hamalcha me'eretz Mitzrayim. He took us out of Mitzrayim. Hashem's the man. You don't want to be afraid of anybody. Gevalt. El ha-milchama. You get close to war. V'nigash hakohen v'diber el ha'am. So he speaks to the people. Gives us a pump-up speech. What's the pump-up speech? What's the pump-up speech? We're playing Eye the Tiger? Like, what's happening here? The final countdown? Who knows? V'amar aleim Shema Yisrael atem krivim hayom la'milchama chevra. Get ready to go to war today. Alevechem al yirach levavchem al tiru v'al tachpazu v'al ta'artzu mipneihem. Don't be afraid. Shema Yisrael chevra. We're going to war and we're going to be okay. Zok Rashi Shema Yisrael afilu in bachem zechus el kriya shema bilvad kedai atem shioshia eschem. You're shaking in your boots. You think you're not such a tzaddik. Maybe there were bouts of Eidei Hazam, Eidei Achasha. So the Maharal earlier, okay? We're going to war. I'm not such a good guy. What zechuyos do I have? So says Rashi, if you have Kriya Shema, you're good. If you have Kriya Shema, you're good to go. So b'siyata de Shema, let's try to explain this Maharal. Afilu in b'chem el zechus Kriya Shema. Quotes Rashi. De'im lo kain, lo heve leila meimar Shema Yisrael. Meaning he's saying Pshat and Rashi. Obviously, when the Torah said "V'amar aleim Shema Yisrael," that was meduyuk, that was specific. Rak heve leila michtav v'daber aleim hayom atem kerevim. You're going to war. Obviously, we're saying Shema is fundamental here. Why is Shema fundamental? V'tam adavar where it's bolded. Ki zechus kriya Shema dai lehem lenetzach. Person has kriya Shema alone. That's enough for them to be victorious, to be saved, to be successful in battle. Why? Ki ha'achdus shehem ma'aminim bo. The achdus, the unity and unification that they have and that believe in Him, ma'amin and bo, sheim menatzchem as koach ha'umos. Meaning we recognize that God is one and God controls everything, God runs the world. When you have that emunah and you're going to battle, so you're not afraid of anything. Because Hashem is one, in od milvado, there's nothing else in the world. And as the Maharal says, sha'echad mora al she'in mi ba'ado. There's nothing else besides the Kadosh Baruch in the world. And if a Kadosh Baruch is running the show, he has the lashon here also in a footnote. He quotes from the Maharal's drashos in Shabbos Agadol. In Pirush, when we say V'yadat hayom hashivos elavavecha in Parshas ve'eschanan, we say it in Aleinu. Ki Hashem hu Elokim b'shmayim ima v'al ha'aretz mitachas ein od. What does ein od mean? The in Pirush ein od ki ein od Elokim. Don't say that there's no other God. Aval Pirusho ki ein od davar ba'olam rak Hashem yisparach. Whoa! There's nothing else in this world besides the Kadosh Baruch Hu. That's a chashav line. Everything is Hashem. Inod Movada. There's nothing in this world that exists without a Kadosh Baruch Hu. Everything has the chiyus and the life from a Kadosh Baruch Hu. So you go to war and you say Shema Yisrael, Shema Kino Shem Echad. You believe that no matter what happens, no matter what enemies are in front of me, whatever these enemies try to do, nothing else matters. You say Shema Yisrael. We've seen all these videos on WhatsApp over the past, unfortunately, 600 and whatever it's been, 81, 87 days, I forget. And you see these chayalim about to go to battle. There's nothing more inspiring when they scream Shema Yisrael, the Makabu Omach Shemaim Berabim. It's the coolest thing in the entire world. It's mamish the coolest thing to see. And it doesn't matter. They're not afraid of anybody because they have a Kadosh Baruch on our sides. And once there's nothing else besides him, Nimsa Kihu Gover Al Hakol. He's stronger than everything. He can dominate everything. Ad she'in hakol nechshav etzlo, and nothing else stands in his way. It's like blowing over a couple toothpicks. Rak koach echad. V'Yisrael devekim be'echad lekachim govrim alu umos. Because the umos, the Maharal speaks about, they're all about pizor. They're all about separation, saying there are other kochos in the world, and we have this avodah zarah, and this avodah zarah has some sort of koach and power, and it's all bogus. It's all narishkeit. And when we're ma'achid HaKadosh Baruch Hu, when we're ma'achid and mekabel Shem Shemayim, so it gives us the power of that oneness. And then we are the ambassadors, and we're kind of channeling Hashem's kochos, are, so to speak, flowing through us. And there's nothing that can stop us. But we realize it's not because of us. It's because of HaKadosh Baruch Hu. I was thinking, maybe if we can just add a little bit to this Maharal. What's the... we have a funny Gemara in Maseches Menachos that talks about how it's a parallel Gemara to Maseches Brachos and Lamed Hey of how much should a person be learning, how much should a person be working. In the Gemara in Brachos, so Rashbi is very intense. You have to learn all day long. Where Rabbi Shmuel is saying, no, you have to learn and you have to work. Okay, you have to make ends meet, but you got to be kavati from the Torah. So fine, you have to have some sort of balance. Rashbi is like, no, you got to learn all day long. In Menachos, it flips, and Rashbi says, if a person all he has is what? Kriya Shema Shel Shachris and Kriya Shema Shel Arvis, so that's good. And you're Mekayim Yigisabo Yom and Valayla. Machlokes, should you even teach that? Should you tell Amal? You don't want to like be mefarsim the halacha, because people are going to think I don't need to come to Wednesday night shir anymore. I can just say Kriya Shema and we're good to go. Fine. But I was thinking about it. What does that mean? That okay, you have Kriya Shema as the bookends of your day. You're good. V'yisabo Yom and Valayla. V'yisabo Yom and Valayla. I thought it meant that the person has to be learning day and night. So you're Yotzei with a simple. So we're learning Koheles in Yeshiva this year, the senior boys. And there's a Gemara Masechah Shabbos and Daf Lamed that has a whole discussion. Chazal weren't so hatzi-tatzi with Koheles because there's steers inside of Koheles. So and the Gemara lists different steers, different contradictions that come up in the Psukim. So what's the story with the Sefer? Should we keep it? Should we not keep it? Should we bury it? And then the Gemara has a Psak. No, since Tchilaso v'Sofo is Torah, so we keep it. And it's good, and it gets in the canon. Now we have Chamesh Megillos, one of them being Koheles, Gival. I was thinking, maybe that's shot in this Gemara. A person is doing something all throughout the day, even if you're Rashbi. Rashbi's got to be learning Torah. There's certain days where we're not learning Yom and Valayla all day long. But if you wake up in the morning, you say Kriya Shema, and you go to bed at night, and you make sure before I go to sleep I have to say Kriya Shema. So what does it show? It shows your ritzonos. That in the middle of the day I had 1.5 million things I had to do. But my bookends are Torah, Tchilaso v'Sofu Torah, and it's Mora al Hakol then. So anything I was doing throughout the day, it almost doesn't matter because my heart was in what? My heart was in Torah, and I wanted to be learning Torah. Maybe you could say this also. Shema, Kriya Shema. All you need is Kriya Shema. If you only have the schus of Kriya Shema, so then you're good to go. It doesn't mean flippantly just say Kriya Shema once. Maybe it means that if you have Kriya Shema, that means your whole day is Kavaz Malach Shemayim, beginning and end. Tchilas and Sofo. If you were Makabel Malach Shemayim, that means everything else that was happening, everything else that you're doing, no matter what it is that you're involved in, you're trying to bring a HaKadosh Baruch Hu into your life, and you're Ma'achid Shem Hashem also in everything that you're doing. A person that's Ma'achid Shem Shemayim all day long, you have nothing to be afraid of when you go into war. Because you know you have Hashem on your side. You live with the HaKadosh Baruch Hu all day long. When you live with the HaKadosh Baruch Hu all day long, nothing bad can happen. Even the things that seem bad, even the things that frustrate us throughout the day, the challenges that we experience and the different obstacles at work and at home and everything else that are thrown our way, if you live with the HaKadosh Baruch Hu, it's okay. I just read a story. Well, end with this. It's cute and it's almost cheesy, but I don't know. I thought about it. I thought it was amazing. There's this family that drove. They came to Chicago for the week from Baltimore. Actually, good question though. They drove in from Baltimore. They made a bunch of stops on the way. They hung out here. They went to Michiana, whatever. They drove back home. Okay, they have 13 kids in the family. Kanai Nahara. They drove back in one of these big vans, and they got home. It's 95 degrees, I think, in Baltimore, and they walk inside, and the air conditioner is broken. There's no AC in the house. And one of the kids is like, "Well, Baruch Hashem, we have a house." So I read that. Someone sent me that story, whatever it was, and I was like, "Okay, it's cute, whatever, you know." I was like, "Who said it?" It was the 13-year-old girl. You only say Baruch Hashem, we have a house if you live with Baruch Hashem all the time. If Shem Shemayim is Shagar B'Fiv, if you're Makabel Malach Shemayim non-stop, So then you're going to respond, even when things are frustrating, even when things are difficult. You're going to respond with Baruch Hashem. You're going to respond with I have Hashem with me. You're going to respond in the right ways because you know Hashem put you in that place, and Hashem wants you to be there, and He wants you to embrace that challenge. So when we go out to war, when we're Mekabel Malach Shemayim, we have nothing to worry about because we know HaKadosh Baruch Hu Eino Milvado. We know the Umos Ha'olam have nothing they can do can stop us. We have HaKadosh Baruch Hu on our side, and just like the Jewish people were Matzliach in battle, when they have HaKadosh Baruch Hu, we should all be Matzliach in our battles, in our own individual lives, because we have HaKadosh Baruch Hu on our side. We'll hold it here. I'm looking forward to a Gevaldik year in the Maharal. Shkoyach.